Senate roll call, day 29, Monday, February 24th. Anderson? Here. Barlow? Boner? Here. Brennan? Here. Case? Hey. Cooper? Here. Crago? Crum? Excuse, Mr. President? Excuse. Dockstetter? Here. Driscoll? Here. French? Here. Baru? Here. Hicks? Hutchings? Here. Ide? Here. Jones? Here. Kolb? Landon? Here. Larson? Here. McEwen? Here. Nethercott? Here. Olson? Here. Pappas? Here. Pearson? Here. Rothfuss? Here. Salazar? Here. Schuler? Here. Scott? Here. Smith? Here. Steinmetz? Here. President Beitman? Here. Mr. President, 30 present, 1 excused.
Thank you, Ellen. Today's chaplain of the day is Pastor Jake Merriman from Cheyenne Evangelical Free Church, and he'll lead us in the prayer today.
Please join me in prayer. God, you are Lord of heaven and earth. You made the world and everything in it. You give to all humanity life and breath and everything. You have established every nation that lives on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and boundaries for our dwelling, that we should seek you and find you. Yet you are actually not far from each one of us, for in you we live and move and have our being. With all that in mind, Father, you have the right of rule. You have the ultimate say-so. There is no authority except from you, and those that exist have been instituted by you. And so we thank you for the establishment of this nation. We thank you for the establishment of the state of Wyoming and for the countless blessings that you have given to us in this place. We thank you for the beauty of your creation on display here. We thank you for the vast resources that you have blessed us with. I thank you for each member of this chamber. I lift them up to you and ask that you would grant to them wisdom from above, wisdom to discern what your will is, wisdom to know how best to legislate, to be good stewards of all that you have entrusted to us for this time in this place, and wisdom to discuss, debate, deliberate, and decide in a way and in a manner that is pleasing to you. As you granted to King Solomon so long ago a wise and discerning mind to be able to govern well, so grant those good gifts to the members of this body, that your goodness would be experienced by the people of Wyoming through the duties carried out here. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Sarah, next will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Senator Driscoll, do you have a privilege of the floor by chance?
Mr. President, thank you. Fellow senators, I'd like to introduce you. If you look to the head table, you'll see a couple bronzes up there. We have Harvey DeSalms and former Representative Jim Byrd, which one of the bronzes is his mother, and incredible. These are part of the downtown project. I think Harvey's going to talk to us a little about it. Jim will tell us a little about his mother, who is a good friend of Wyoming's and a good friend of mine. So please help me welcome them, and they'll both do a little talk from the podium, please. Go Bird. Go Bird. Free Bird.
Welcome to the Senate. Thank you,
Mr.
so much.
President.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please
Thank you so much.
say a few
Go
words.
ahead, Harvey, go first.
Okay, go on ahead.
Thank you very much, Senator Driscoll, for the opportunity to come and address the body. And what I want to do is invite every one of you to enjoy the bronzes in downtown Cheyenne. We have 70 bronzes out there right now. We have 15 more that will be installed this summer. Special recognition to Tara Nethercott is one of our donors, an early on donor for this. The whole project started about 2010. In the next 5 years, we had 5 bronzes. Right after COVID, people, we didn't know how that was going to be, what was going to happen. So a lot of people had time to reflect and saying, I want to leave a legacy. And so since then, 65 of these bronzes have been put out since 2021. And they're all privately funded. I can't stress that enough. In the world of taxes and complaining about taxes, these are our friends and neighbors, senators, doctors, lawyers, farmers, ranchers that have given their money to make these things available for all of us to enjoy. On each bronze, there is a QR code. You can look up the history of the corner, what happened on the corner, the bronze, the artist, and the donor. So I invite you all to come downtown and explore and enjoy all the artwork that we have in Cheyenne. And these are 2 of the newest pieces. Like I said, these are part of there's 13 others, these 2 make 15, that will be gracing the streets of Cheyenne. And again, thank you so much for your time, and please do explore Cheyenne.
Thank you. Old habits die hard. Mr. President, privilege of the floor.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Members of the Senate, it is a pleasure to be here this morning to address you. Harvey and his benefactors and 2 very fine sculptures have created 2 wonderful statues. One is Vernon Baker, who I actually was informed that I am related to also. So he won the Medal of Honor. For those of you who are not aware of his history, Wyoming resident who served a very illustrious career in the military, retired and then moved to Idaho for some reason, but we'll leave that out of this. The other is my mother. It's difficult to talk about her because she is my mother. She was a career school teacher, 28 years in elementary school. That was her passion, was education. Making sure that the kids that she taught had the fundamentals, the tools to go forward and be successful. And that does dovetail into what you're sitting here doing in this chamber. You're an extension of that. She was an extension of what comes out of this building. And so it was only a natural transition for her as an elementary teacher to come up here to the Capitol, where she served first in the House, and then she served in this body on the Senate side. Most of you will think that her claim to fame was the Martin Luther King holiday bill. And that is quite a tall order. A brief background on that, she carried that bill 9 times before it became law. So those of you who have been beaten down and thinking that, a couple, 2 or 3 times on a bill and it's time to move on, you should probably check that. And if it's good enough, it will get to the top and it will make it to the governor's desk for a signature. So that's a little bit of advice that would come directly from Liz herself. The other is just make sure that as we go along, history that you take care of inside this room and here on is our history, the history of the state of Wyoming. She was all about that. My family homesteaded here when it was still a territory, so our roots go deep. And even though you don't see me around these halls much, I do listen to what goes on up here. And so at that, I'll just say it is an honor and it is a privilege to have the statues displayed here in the Capitol until they are installed over downtown. One on Cary and the other is on the park?
By Civic Center.
Yes, by Civic Center Park. And we'll do that when the weather gets nicer. So those of you who are interested, Harvey will be making public comments about that. But again, Mr. President, I know you're busy. Thank you for the time, and thank all of you.
Hear, hear. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Madam Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good Senators, just a quick shout out to Mr. DeSelms, who has DeSelms Fine Art down on 17th Street. It is a gallery with a welcome reprieve from the Senate to surround yourself with some beautiful Western art and, of course, good gift ideas for our Senate secretaries and chairmen. So, Mr. President, thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Reading correction and approval of journal. Will the reading clerk please read the journal committee report?
Mr. President, your journal committee reports that the journal of February 21, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Crum, chairman.
Thank you. Are there any objections? There being none, the report is adopted. Doctor of the day, we have a doctor of the day, people. It's Dr. Brendan Fitzsimmons, MD. So please welcome Dr. Fitzsimmons to the Senate. All right. Today, in U.S. history, in 1868, the U.S. House of Representatives impeached President Andrew Johnson. Quote for the day, "You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step." Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The dad joke of the day, I spent a lot of time, money, and effort child-proofing my house, but the kids still get in. And then this one here, I was going to tell you a time-traveling joke, but you guys didn't get it, so you didn't like it. Announcements. Reminder, if you traveled home over the weekend, please remember to go sign the mileage book in the LSO office. Heather will be happy to see you and get you paid and on your way. Okay, messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, Mr. President, these messages are dated February 21, 2025. Message number 338, concurrence passed. The House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 264, Central Bank Digital Currencies Prohibitions. Ayes 49, noes 3, excused 10. Message number 339, concurrence passed. The House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 172, repeal gun-free zones and preemption amendments. Ayes 47, noes 7, excused 8. Message number 340, conferees appointed for Joint Conference Committee number 1. The House appointed House conferees to meet with the like Committee number 1 from the Senate on amendments to Senate File 32. House conferees are Representative Guerin, Chairman, Representative Nicholas, and Representative Singh. Message number 341, House appointed House conferees to meet with the like Committee number 1 from the Senate on amendments to Senate File 84. House conferees are Representative Banks, Chairman, Representative Kelly, and Representative Strzok. Signed, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Randy. House bills on first reading. House Bill 258, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 258, State-Funded Capital Construction, sponsored by the House Appropriations Committee.
House Bill 258 is assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. House Bill 259, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 259, Supplemental K-12 School Facilities Appropriations 2, sponsored by the House Appropriations Committee. Passed the House, ayes 59, noes 1, excused 2.
House Bill 259 is assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Bills on second reading. House Bill 72, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 72, Protecting Women's Privacy in Public Spaces Act.
Madam Majority Floor Leader.
Absent objection, I request that we lay back House Bill 72 for one day.
Absent objection, House Bill 72 is laid back for one day. Next bill up is House Bill 242, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 242, Manufacturers and Dealers of New Trailers Changes, sponsored by Representative Tarver.
House Bill 242 having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 289, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 289, Certificate of Need Repeal, sponsored by Representative Garringer.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, Friday afternoon late, I got a copy of the data book from the Health Department trying to figure out, and I was using that over the weekend, trying to figure out how much this bill was actually going to cost us. Came up with an estimate of 97 million general fund biennium additional cost, but I don't trust it because the information in the data book was not 100% clear as to exactly what it was representing. So I'm going to ask if this bill could be laid back one day while we try to straighten that out, have a better estimate as to what the cost really going to be. The fiscal note was worthless, Mr. President.
Okay. Absent any objection, House Bill 289 is laid back for one additional day. House Bill 316, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 316 engrossed, School Finance Model Recalibration 2.
There is an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
House Bill 316, second reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 1, line 4, after.
Thank you. Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 316 and ask for your favorable recommendation, Senators. What this is this is an amendment to add in the ECA that is currently found in our supplemental budget. It is subject to the passage of the supplemental budget, but as we continue to negotiate that particular bill, this is a backup to make sure that we have funding for the ECA that we're able to pass, recognizing that's an important legal component. So as we continue to work on this piece, this is subject to it not passing in the budget. This is just a backup plan here within this bill. So with that, I'm happy to stand for questions. You're not appropriating any more money than you already have. It is subject to, but just as a backup. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Nethercott, discussion. Senator Scott.
Mr. President, looking at the title of the bill, this bill, it's relating to school finance, all right. It's creating the Select Committee and Recalibration. It's funding the recalibration study, is putting an appropriation for an ECA really germane to this particular bill. And I question that. And frankly, in the Education Committee, I was no on the ECA. I didn't think that it was something that we needed to do at this time, Mr. President, given the funding status of the districts currently. But I really question whether it really is an appropriate amendment on this bill.
Discussion. Back to, before the sponsor? Before the sponsor, nobody? Okay, back to Senator Nethercott.
Mr. President, yeah, great question. So this was a recommendation by our LSO staff that would be an appropriate place to place this particular safety mechanism. You know, whether or not you're for the ECA or not, I don't think is the piece. It's contingent on the supplemental. This is actually less than what's recommended from the ECA. As a reminder to the body, I think it's about 30 million less than what was recommended. So still at risk there, but still funding some of the recommended ECA. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 316. All those in favor say aye. Oh, it is a roll call. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Roll call on second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 316. Anderson? Aye. Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum excused. Dockstader? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. Jones? Aye. Kolb? No. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Smith? No. Steinmetz? No. President Biteman?
Aye.
Aye. McEwen? No to aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed on the amendment. 22 aye, 8 no.
Second reading amendment number 1, the Senate, or House Bill 316 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. House Bill 316 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. All right. Members of the Senate, today we welcome representatives of the Wyoming Breast Cancer Initiative who will provide an update on their efforts to raise awareness and expand breast cancer prevention across Wyoming. Please help me welcome their team, Laura Bellotti, Karen Rossetti, and Stacy Buckles. Please welcome these ladies. Thank you very much.
Good morning, members of the Senate. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about the Wyoming Breast Cancer Initiative. I'd like to recognize all cancer survivors, their families, and friends who are here today to celebrate Pink Day at the legislature. My name is Laurel Bellotti. I am a wife, mother, executive, and community volunteer. I am a member of the Wyoming Breast Cancer Initiative Board of Directors and a breast cancer survivor. It is truly my honor to represent the Wyoming Breast Cancer Initiative today. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in January of 2021, and today is my 4-year anniversary of my double mastectomy, a life-saving surgery that removed the cancer from my body. Early detection saved my life. The type of breast cancer I had was extremely aggressive, ultimately requiring 18 months of treatments infused through a port in my chest. At the time of diagnosis, I was considered young for breast cancer. I had my first mammogram nearly 10 years before the typical recommendations of the American Cancer Society, and there is no breast cancer in my family. Being diagnosed with breast cancer never really will make sense, but I believe I was chosen so I could be an advocate for others, especially those in underserved communities in our state. The Wyoming Breast Cancer Initiative was founded in January of 2016 with a mission to increase breast cancer awareness and prevention across Wyoming. As a Wyoming-based organization, we are dedicated to ensuring all funds raised stay within the state to support our communities. Through statewide events, generous donors, and strong partnerships, we provide grants to community-based breast cancer programs. We also collaborate with the Wyoming Cancer Program, part of the Wyoming Department of Health, to ensure that all Wyoming residents, regardless of age, income, gender, or insurance status, have access to essential tests related to breast cancer diagnosis. The WBCI steps in where federal funding falls short, making a real difference for those in need. Money raised in Wyoming stays in Wyoming. Since our inception, the Wyoming Breast Cancer Initiative has granted over $1 million to support breast cancer screening, prevention, patient navigation, and survivor support programs across Wyoming. Our funding has assisted 5,850 patients with navigation services, provided 2,051 patients with breast boutique services, supported 1,781 patients with counseling sessions, funded 1,582 screening mammograms and diagnostic tests, and enabled over 6,000 clinical breast exams. We are committed to reducing barriers to care and ensuring Wyoming residents have the resources they need. On behalf of our board, staff, volunteers, survivors, warriors, and their families, we thank you for recognizing our work today. We remain committed to raising awareness for early detection, providing navigation services for those in treatment, and supporting our survivors. For more information, please visit us online at wyomingbreastcancer.org. Thank you so much for having us today.
Well, thank you to the Wyoming Breast Cancer Initiative and for all you do. We wish you all the best. So thanks for coming. Thank you.
Mr. President, may I have privilege of the floor? Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, up in the gallery is my mother, who is standing, and my daughter, and they're here for the breast cancer. My mom is a 2-time survivor of breast cancer.
Welcome Evie's mom, and thank you for raising such a wonderful, wonderful woman. Senator Jones.
Mr. President, privilege of the floor.
The floor is yours.
If we could give a warm Senate welcome to my friend Ann Covey, who is a principal in Green River, and we have another Green River principal also up there, Danielle Bird.
Welcome to the Senate. Thanks for making the trek over from Green River. Bills on third reading and final passage. Madam Majority Floor Leader, do we have a consent list?
Mr. President, I move the third reading consent list as follows. House Bill 5, Fishing Outfitters and Guides, Registration of Fishing Boats. House Bill 46, Homeschool Freedom Act. House Bill 97, Property Conveyances Near Critical Infrastructure. House Bill 181, Funeral Contracts, Investment and Bonding Requirements. House Bill 226, License Plate Search and Rescue Council.
Okay. Would anybody like any of these bills removed from the consent list? Seeing none? All right. Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the Senate? House Bill 5, Fishing Outfitters and Guides, Registration of Fishing Boats. House Bill 46, Homeschool Freedom Act. House Bill 97, Property Conveyances Near Critical Infrastructure. House Bill 181, Funeral Contracts, Investment and Bonding Requirements, and House Bill 226, License Plate Search and Rescue Council. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
On the consent list, Anderson. Aye. Barlow. Aye. Boner. Aye. Brennan. Aye. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Crago. Aye. From excused, Dockstader. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. French. Aye. Garou. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings. Aye. Ide. Aye. Jones. Aye. Cole. Aye. Landon. Aye. Larson. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Olson. Pappas. Aye. Pearson. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Smith. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. President.
We're looking for Senator Olson here.
Olson. Aye. Aye. President Beitman.
Aye.
On the consent list, 30 aye, 1 excused. House Bill 5, are there any changes? Aye? Aye to no. Hicks? Aye to no. Hutchings? Aye to no. Pearson? Aye to no. McEwen? Aye to no. Aye to no. Steinmetz? Aye to no. Cole? Aye to no.
Bateman, no.
Beitman, no. Closing vote. Salazar? No. French? No. Larson? No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 5, 19 aye, 11 no, 1 excused. House Bill 46, are there any changes? Case, aye to no. Landon, no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 46, 28 aye, 2 no, 1 excused. House Bill 97, are there any changes? Case, aye to no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 97, 29 aye, 1 no, 1 excused. House Bill 181, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 181, 30 aye, 1 excused. And House Bill 226, are there any changes? Larson? Aye to no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 226, 29 aye, 1 no, 1 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 5, Fishing Outfitters and Guides, Registration of Fishing Boats. House Bill 46, Homeschool Freedom Act. House Bill 97, Property Conveyances Near Critical Infrastructure. House Bill 181, Funeral Contracts, Investment and Bonding Requirements. And House Bill 226, License Plate Search and Rescue Council have passed the Senate. Bills on third reading and final passage. House Bill 33, third reading of the Senate, or House Bill.
House Bill 33, Vehicle Sales and Use Tax Distribution Highway Fund, sponsored by the Transportation Committee, an act relating to sales and use tax.
There's an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read it? Oh, Senator Driscoll.
Without objection, I'd ask that House Bill 33 be laid back for 1 day.
Absent objection, House Bill 33 is laid back for 1 day. House Bill 39, third reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 39, Property Tax Refund Program Revisions, sponsored by the Revenue Committee, an act relating to property tax.
Discussion on the bill. We good? All right. House Bill 39, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Third reading roll call, House Bill 39. Anderson? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum excused. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 39, 30 ayes, 1 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 39 has passed the Senate. House Bill 64, third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 64, engrossed, chemical abortions, ultrasound requirements, sponsored by Representative Nyman, an act relating to abortions.
Senator Driscoll?
Without objection, I'd ask House Bill 64 be laid back one day.
Absent objection, House Bill 64 is laid back for one day. House Bill 116, third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 116, driver's licenses, unauthorized alien restrictions, sponsored by Representative Ottman, an act relating to driver's licenses.
Discussion on the bill, Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good senators, I know there was a series of discussions about consequences and maybe unintended consequences associated with this bill. I've heard some discussion amongst us, but not on the floor, to bring to the public's attention. One primary issue I have related to this bill is the consequences it may have on insurance. And so I know to the state south of us, there is a number of concerns related to unauthorized individuals driving, causing crashes, and they don't have insurance. And so what we heard when this bill was originally sponsored is that those states issuing driver's license to illegals is for the purposes of one of the reasons is for the purposes of obtaining vehicle insurance. And I certainly appreciate that, understanding the consequences to families when they're in a car accident with an uninsured motorist. I appreciate that you can get uninsured motorist coverage. It is not the same, which is why we require drivers to have motor vehicle insurance instead of uninsured motorist coverage. I don't think most Wyomingites elect for the full option of uninsured motorist coverage, if they even have it at all. And so this is a serious concern, and one that I do believe warrants further Senate discussion or answers to those questions by the sponsors who are advocating for this bill, to understand those full consequences and more details about that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you. You know, we go home to get kind of refreshed and rest up a little bit, and then you sit there on the couch and you think about some of these bills, and this one came to my mind quite a little bit over the weekend. It just makes me a little uneasy. So I reached out to one of our law enforcement professionals, who I respect, had a great visit. And he brought up several points that I really hadn't thought about with this bill. Two of which are this: if we were to set up a checkpoint out there on I-80, and it would require every one of us to pull off there and be checked, just to make sure on our driver's licenses, I don't think we'd like that very much. What this bill seems to be saying is, if we have any doubts, we're going to pull somebody over and check their driver's license. The other thing that law enforcement professional brought up to me that I hadn't thought about is, yes, there is a national database that can be accessed by computers and in the car computers. But the problem is, to get a full report back on an individual may take as much as 30, 35 minutes. So when a trooper pulls somebody over out there on I-80 somewhere or I-25, and they have to sit there for 30 plus minutes just to be proven right, or to make sure that that trooper doesn't see anything on the record, that is something that was concerning to this law enforcement professional that I was visiting with, because he said, we can't keep somebody longer than what it would take to normally process whatever violation that we're accusing somebody of. So I just wanted to share that because, you know, I was scratching my head, reached out. That's kind of some of the feedback that I got. This particular law enforcement professional had some real reservations about this bill. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Let's go to Senator Pappas next.
Thank you, Mr. President. In our committee of the whole debate, we brought up the idea of violating a compact, a driver's license compact, and I said I was going to look into it more because I had concerns about that. So yes, we are part of the driver's license compact. Not all states belong to it, but we do. Come to find out, that compact really is only for the sharing of data. And so if we do pass this, we may be in violation of the compact. So what is the consequences for Wyoming? Pretty much all it would affect is we wouldn't be able to access the database for those for the information that all of these compact states share. There is another part, there is another agreement called the driver's license agreement. Now, we are not signatory to that agreement. If we were, then yes, that agreement actually says that you will accept the driver's license of another state, but we are not signatory to that. So if this bill should pass, obviously we wouldn't be in violation of it since we don't belong to it. And there is actually another compact that the non-resident violators compact, which 43 states now, because one backed out in 2019, belong to. However, that compact is not addressed in this particular bill, so it doesn't affect us. So all that being said, my opinion is that really this bill doesn't do the state of Wyoming any good. I think that violating the driver's license compact, which would possibly negate us from being able to access the database of all these states, I think is something that we don't want to do. We want to be able to access that. I don't think that the bill accomplishes much other than puts us, I think, behind the curve when it comes to our law enforcement folks getting the data they need to enforce our laws. So I would respectfully ask you just to oppose this bill. I don't think it does much. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Hutchings?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm a little concerned about the question on insurance, how that plays or is germane to the bill, and a question on the having to sit there for 30 minutes to wait for the law enforcement to run your records. I did a California stop once, and I could swear I was there for 40 minutes waiting for him to come back to me, and thank God he just told me to go away. I'd like to know more about this compact. It seems like this bill is saying that we don't want illegals having driver's licenses. How does the compact protect us from that when it comes to just sharing information? If other states just willy-nilly give out driver's license to whoever and they come to Wyoming, I think one of the concerns was that they may have the right to vote here in our state by just coming in, hey, I've got a driver's license from another state, but they're not really citizens. So if you can answer that for me, I'd like to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. To answer a few questions, I took the time to call up our sheriff in my county, which we have the largest section of Route 80 going through the county, and our sheriff didn't have any issues with this. I asked him about how much time it would take, because I heard it came up on the floor last discussion we had. He said there really isn't any delay. It's quick. They call up, they get the data back, they make a decision right there. And we do cooperate with ICE in Sweetwater County, and if they ask for an ICE hold, they would do that. So there is no issue with finding out the information. And there is nothing in this bill that talks about some sort of checkpoint. There's nothing in the bill that talks about that. There is no checkpoint. You need probable cause. You just don't pull people over. So there has to be a reason. So that doesn't really exist. And then the compact question, frankly, I would argue that the other states are in fact in violation of the compact. They're violating US law by letting people with unauthorized aliens to get a driver's license in a way to sidestep the other laws of this United States of America. So I would argue they're in violation of it. But this is purely an information sharing pack. Nothing more than that for the packs we're truly involved with. And I might add that the great state to the far east and south that has a lot of oranges in it passed a law in 2023 that does what this bill is intending to do. And there has not been ramifications. There has not been any issues because of that. And they are involved in the same compact agreement that we're involved with. So there's nothing's come of that either. I think it's time that we can stand for one time in 4 years that I've been here with the administration that believes that unauthorized folks shouldn't be in the country. And as they stated publicly, you know, it's time to either do it right, leave the country, come back in again properly. This is merely in lockstep with their goals. And I'm proud in this case to stand with the federal government. I believe what they're doing is the right thing. And this is an attempt to do the right thing, to have people in the country not drive vehicles that aren't supposed to be here. They violated the law of the country. It's that simple. This is just an attempt to try to, I guess, not go along with what these other rogue states want to do. So on and for the bill, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Cole. Let's go to Senator Anderson for your first time.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I rise to agree with the senator from Kilpecker Creek. The law professionals I talked to said that if they tried to do it from their computer, it took 30 minutes. But if they called the dispatcher, they had results in 2 to 3 minutes. So they always call the dispatcher and have them check it out. So there is no delay if they call the dispatcher. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Senator Nethercott, for your second time.
Mr. President, thank you. Thank you for your patience. The issue of insurance, why is it germane? If you pass this bill, the drivers driving through this state, all of the millions and millions of illegals, all of these rogue leftist states that have authorized driver's license so those folks can have insurance, when they drive through I-80 and I-25, and I suggest Laramie County has more of that than anyone else, and they crash into a Wyoming family, that Wyoming family has no recourse. That's why it matters. So why is that? It has nothing to do with sheriffs. It has nothing to do with illegal status. It has to do with vehicle insurance contracts that are subject to having a lawful license, which is why those states issued them in the first place. So by passing this law, the driver to the south of us, who might be an illegal, who has a lawfully issued driver's license that we don't like, I get that, I don't like it either. But that's how it is, right? In order for them to have insurance coverage, they then drive up into the state of Wyoming and they are no longer a lawful driver. Bingo invalidates their car insurance. Bingo, they crash into your family. Bingo, there's no money. Bingo, you're out of a job. You have to look at what the impacts are other than we're joining the administration and wiping out the illegals. Super great. There are consequences on our roads. So it's just very important to understand, and your sheriff has no idea about that because they're not getting the calls to the lawyers to help your family when you're in the hospital and you've lost your job and you don't have uninsured motorist, or maybe you do, but it only covers $20,000, and that's not quite enough for the whole family when you have a traumatic brain injury and you're not coming back to work anytime soon. So it's just a little more complicated with real consequences to the innocent people of Wyoming on your roadways. I don't like it either. I'm not sure this is the solution to combating illegal immigration or those states issuing those driver's licenses. If you want to make a law requiring that coverage to continue, that should have been the solution. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to Senator Steinmetz first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for the bill, and having been a licensed insurance agent, there are a lot of risks out there on the road. There are a lot of people driving around without insurance, and most of them that get a driver's license somewhere and come in and get that high-risk insurance, let it lapse the next time the next payment's due, and they're driving around without insurance anyway. So if you want to protect yourself, buy an umbrella policy, do what you can to protect yourself and your family and take some personal responsibility. But we shouldn't be letting illegal aliens drive around because we're afraid that someone's going to run into us without insurance. I would submit to you, there are hundreds of people driving around without insurance, having worked across the counter from them for several years. So I can tell you a lot more about it if you want to know, but this is not a valid reason to not pass this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Steinmetz. Let's go to Senator Kolb for your second time.
And for my second time, thank you, Mr. President. So that's a valid point that was brought up about the insurance. Unfortunately, in the state of Wyoming, it's $25,000 minimum coverage. That will barely get you a ride in a helicopter to a hospital. So therein lies the problem. I think that's a good point, but we should talk about the minimum insurance coverage necessary to drive a vehicle in the state of Wyoming, because $25,000 isn't getting you anything. So it doesn't get around the problem of people breaking the law. They broke the law when they came into the country, and they continue to break the law driving through our country. On for the bill, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Smith.
Mr. President, I'll be very pithy. I'm in complete agreement with the dapper man from the Rocket City. Being illegal should have consequences. It should be illegal to be illegal, and we should have consequences for that. And we shouldn't look at the unintended consequences of enforcing macro laws that are actually vital to our national security and for the health of this state. So on and for the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, kind of hearing some comments going around here on and for the bill that, you know, it's they've got a legal driver's license, but they're an illegal alien. So something doesn't really mesh there for me. You know, if they're here illegally and they have a so-called legal driver's license from another state, that's not right. So I honor for the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yep, thank you, Senator Rothfuss. To you next.
Thank you, Mr. President, for my first time, probably my last. Mr. President, you know, I live in a county and represent a county that is on I-80 and is on the southern border. The state to our south does have a program that allows undocumented immigrants to have driver's licenses. That apparently liberal bastion of a state to our west also has a program that connects on I-80 and has a program. So this is real. this is a real circumstance where we have unquestionably flowing through my community a substantial number of undocumented immigrants that are on a license of this type. So when I think about the interests of my constituents, I can think about the interests of, well, having some way to punish someone for having this type of driver's license. But, Mr. President, if they're illegal and undocumented, they're already illegal and undocumented, and action can be taken, right? We know that the Highway Patrol could engage and do something about that. We have law enforcement capacity. So that's already taken care of. The only concern my people would have really gets to the insurance idea that the good majority floor leader was discussing. So I don't think of this as canceling the license of the undocumented immigrant coming into the state. I literally think of it as canceling the insurance of the undocumented immigrant coming into my district and the implications of that. That's what's happening. The cancellation of license does nothing. Who cares? Their license goes void from a let's fight undocumented immigrant standpoint, does nothing. That does nothing to help or hinder or anything. But it has a clear, tangible, and potentially destroying impact on families in my community if they end up in an accident with an undocumented worker where we, the state legislature, we, the Wyoming legislature, nullified the insurance of one of those involved in the accident to shake our fist at undocumented immigrants. That does not help my constituents. Mr. President, help my constituents vote no on this bill.
Senator Higgs.
So, Mr. President, I think you have to take this in context of what the reality is and how this is actually going to apply. So there's not going to be check stations when you drive into the state of Wyoming, that we're going to pull every driver over and check their driver's license. That's not what happens. Speaking of I-80, that actually has more I-80 than any other two legislators in this body have pretty good understanding what goes on out on I-80. So you will get pulled over by a patrolman for doing what? Doing what? You probably broke the law. You violated the law, right? That's why you're going to get pulled over. They're going to say, hey, it doesn't look like, maybe this driver's license is issued from a certain state that just broke and doesn't follow federal law, so we're going to call in. And because they violated the law, they're going to call in and you're going to go, oh, this person violated the federal law. But we have this situation where we literally have tens of millions of people right now that have been let into this country. And some of these are criminal. And so when you do that and you pull them over and they run the license and they say, oh, this is an illegal alien that didn't follow the laws of the United States, and we're going to run a check on them, and then, we find out this person has numerous other violations across different jurisdictions, or even maybe on ICE's wanted list. The reality is we're not going to take a lot of people off the roads, but we're going to take bad people off the roads. Now, they could have been in an accident also. I think my colleague from Goshen County talked about that. That doesn't negate the point of insurance. We got people out there, Wyoming residents, that have no insurance right now. Your protection is not going to change. It's called go get your own insurance for that. So on and for the bill, understand the ramifications of the bill. It's just going to take more bad people off the roads that have no business being here in the first place. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, I don't see the boogeyman in this thing. The whole insurance thing, why this shows up at third reading in the second chambers is a little bit disturbing. I wish this discussion would have happened earlier. We probably could have addressed that. It's here. Here's what I fundamentally know is the truth. If we pass this out, we'll be back down here. We can correct that issue. In the meantime, we've stepped up. We've consistent with what the federal policy is starting to look like. We're going to lead. We're not the first state to do this. We're not the first state to do this. The ramifications are not the end of the world if we pass this bill out of here.
Senator Rothfuss, for your second time.
For my second time, didn't think I'd get here, but I did want to just point out that the majority floor leader raised this exact point on committee of the whole, and there was a discussion on it. So this is not the first reference to insurance. The second point is, I think the reason that people are going to be checking for the driver's license for these individuals is when they do get into an accident, that is the moment they will check, and they'll realize, oh wait, this is not valid, and then they will nullify the insurance of that individual. That is of consequence, absolutely. The other concept, again, getting to the idea that we already have uninsured drivers, we're trying to avoid that, not add to the number. If you have a large number of uninsured drivers, you end up increasing the insurance cost for the insured drivers. That's how the process works. So that means that this policy leads to increased insurance costs in my district for my constituents. That's the only realistic implication of this that I can see.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so in my part of the world, we have a bunch of agricultural producers, and a lot of those producers have people that work for them that are from other countries, and they're here on work visas, H-2As. We all know that, right? We all know that nomenclature. My question is, and this is, I've had a bunch of them reach out to me about this, and it's dual purpose. One, they're wondering about the question raised by our good floor leader in the back on insurance. Okay, so let's assume one of those folks is here and they're herding sheep and they're out on the highway and they get in a wreck. And almost all the ones I know actually have a Wyoming driver's license. Let's assume they've overstayed by accident or otherwise their H-2A by a day. According to this, they no longer have a valid driver's license. Hence, they no longer have insurance. So now that cost doesn't go to them. It's going to go to their employer, which are my constituents, my producers, my ranchers back home. And so I think there's some, although I applaud what we're trying to do here, this bill has some major holes. And I know what we're trying to get at, but we're creating a much broader net than what we need to. If we want to say we don't want illegal immigrants in the state, let's just do that. Let's just pass that law and make it a very steep penalty. This doesn't get to that. I don't even think this is this may only be a bondable offense. We may not be able to hold them in jail anyways. You read through the bill, paragraph 3, page 3, a non-resident on active duty in the armed forces of the United States, unless you are an illegal immigrant. Well, that makes no sense to me. So there's two issues here. I mean, it's wrong on multiple levels. So if you are an illegal immigrant and you're serving in the you're serving on active duty in the armed forces, you're good enough to take a bullet for us, but you can't drive on our highways. Or the opposite is true, and it makes no sense. And so I'm having some issues getting around just actually the structure of the bill, and then also how it's gonna affect my folks back home. I know lots of us in the ag industry have that problem, and it's a major concern with this bill, and it's probably my biggest one. I have no problem with the majority of the bill. That's a problem. And so, if someone could answer those questions and tell me why I'm wrong, I'd love to hear it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Let's go to Senator McEwen for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Boy, I sure am confused. So I'd like a couple answers. To begin with, the people we're talking about have already broken the law. They're already criminals by definition. They're here illegally. Our state, if you get in trouble as a resident of Wyoming, has no problem taking your driver's license for 2 or 3 years. They even have a separate court at WYDOT to determine when you get your license back, and it's not even tied to circuit or district court. So we now have people we know are criminals driving around, and our biggest concern is whether they're insured or not. They've already broken the law. We shouldn't let them drive. In fact, we should look at legislation and what we do when we catch them, because we don't let our own people get away with stuff like this. So why would we make special dispensation for an illegal alien? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Let's go to Senator Pearson first, and then Senator Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm going to speak on behalf of the H-2A visas. If employers are keeping their workers past the date of the expiration of their visa, those employers are also not compliant. So that's one thing to think about. And from the time that that visa ends, there's a 10-day grace period to get that worker back to the country of origin to restart the process. There are several employers in this, maybe in this state, I don't know, but in this nation, that do allow their workers to overstay their visas, which then ultimately hurts the workers when they go back, because if you don't think they're tracking when the visas end and when they're going back and all of these things, that could create a 10-year delay for those workers to come back into the US. And there are several workers that do this, and they just assume that they're not going to get caught. And there are employers that do the same thing. Employers have to be held accountable too, and they have to abide by the law. We do. Several other H-2A employers do. And so to make this argument as far as the H-2A visas, I understand where these employers are worried about these things, but it's because they are likely not compliant as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Smith.
Mr. President, I just wanted to add, if you've stayed past your visa, then you are illegal. I've been on every continent but Antarctica, been issued dozens of visas, and I've never thought about staying past one, because that would be illegal. And I wouldn't even think to do it, because I might get thrown in jail. That's crazy town. And I also just want to add that if you are serving in the armed services to get your US citizenship, you are not illegal.
Thank you. Senator Hicks, for your second time.
Yeah, for my second time, Mr. President. So on the issue of the overstaying the H-2A workers, typically, not typically, this is the arrangement, they don't drive up here in their own vehicles. The insurance is on the vehicle carried by the employer, typically the ranch or the business entity or the corporation. So that insurance stays with that vehicle. That's normal arrangement when you insure your vehicles in a ranching operation for all of these things, regardless of who's driving them. So that's one issue I don't think that we need to look at from a standpoint, and believe me, I've got more H-2A workers than probably anybody in the state of Wyoming working in their district right now. It's the ranch that provides the insurance on the vehicles. They don't drive those up here, they fly in. And so that's just one issue. And then to my colleague from Albany County, so we've talked about there's Wyoming residents currently have allowed their car insurance to lapse. He's predicating much of his argument on the fact that every one of those illegal aliens' insurance is updated and it's fully paid. I don't know that for a fact. I've seen no data to assume that just because they're illegal and if they've bought insurance at one time, they didn't let it lapse. They're just as more and probably more likely to have allowed, once they get their license and their vehicle licensed, to allow their insurance to lapse than a normal resident. So the assumption that they are not, or that they are going to have insurance, I think is a false assumption. Some of them will, some of them won't. Probably not going to vary that much more than the general population. But Mr. President, I don't want to operate on the assumption that every single one of those illegal aliens out there driving is fully insured to the maximum amount under the laws of the state of Wyoming. On and for the bill.
Thank you, Senator. Let's go to Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and against the bill for the reasons I said earlier, but I just don't see the need for this bill. Okay, why do we want to cancel a license, driver's license from another state? Yes, you say these people are here illegally. If they get stopped or if they get in an accident and we determine they're illegal, just turn them over to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Turn them over to ICE. That's simple as that. They've broken the law, then they'll be dealt with. They'll either be locked up, they'll be deported or whatever. What sense is there of canceling a license when in fact it may create insurance issues? But just when they get picked up, turn them over to ICE. That's the best solution anyhow. Why cancel their driver's license? It just makes no sense.
Anybody else wish to speak? Senator Landon.
Okay, well, fair enough, and I appreciate the debate, Mr. President. I know there's a lot of friends who want to pass this and some friends that don't. I just want to point out that there may be some consequences to this. I've got small business owners in my community. They tend to run businesses like concrete businesses and roofing businesses and hard labor businesses that often workers come up from the state south of us. And they may not be illegal aliens, but they are undocumented. And they got here because we didn't do a very good job on the border down there. But they are working and they are driving up to jobs in my community. So I just want to point that out. We're not talking about murderers and rapists, and we may clean up that too. We might find somebody that really needs to be locked away forever. But we also might catch in the net workers, hundreds of whom come up to our Bighorn Basin, to do the agriculture jobs. Hundreds that come to my part of the world to do the jobs that I just explained. That's where I worry about it a little bit, Mr. President. And all I'm saying is I just got some reservations. I hope we know what we're doing here, because we could catch some dolphins in the net. Thank you.
Senator Landon? Everybody got it all out of their system? Senator Craig?
Not yet, Mr. President.
Okay, for your second time.
So I just want to respond to a couple things. One, at the end of the day, we can vote this bill, we can vote this up, we can vote this bill down. It doesn't do a whole lot, to be honest, other than put us at risk in a few specific areas. To the good senator over here to my left, he said there's only one way you're going to find out if they're driving on this type of illegal license, and that's if they already committed a different crime and got pulled over for that. And if they did, we can apprehend them at that point, or if they were in an accident, we can apprehend them at that point. And we can do all the things we need to do at that point. So does the bill create any issue there? No. I seriously still am worried about the people that employ these folks in my neck of the woods, who did, by the way, come here legally. They are not illegals. They came here legally, they're working legally. The problem is they forgot. Has anybody in here never, or forgotten to go renew your driver's license? I have. I've been late renewing my driver's license before. That does happen. Don't raise your hand, I will. It does happen. Those things happen. We make mistakes. We're all human. And so the fact that maybe someone forgot about their date, it does happen. And those are the folks I'm trying to look out for, I'm trying to protect. And those are the folks, my constituents back home that have these folks working for them. I'm worried about them, because even though they may have insurance, if they let someone with a expired driver's license drive their vehicle, that probably puts them at risk. And they may not have insurance if they let an unlicensed person, which is what this bill creates, drive their vehicle, their insurance goes away. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right. House Bill 116 having been read 3 separate times. The question is, shall the bill pass? The chief clerk will call the roll.
Third reading roll call, House Bill 116, Anderson. Aye. Aye. Barlow. Aye. Boner. Aye. Aye. Brennan. Aye. Aye. Case. No. No. Cooper. No. No. Crago. No. No. From excused, Dockstetter. Aye. Driscoll. No. No. French. Aye. Aye. Guru. No. Hicks. Aye. Aye. Hutchings. Aye. Ide. Aye. Jones. Aye. Cole. Aye. Landon. Aye. Larson. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? No. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 116, 22 aye, 8 noes, 1 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 116 has passed the Senate. Before I get to you, Senator Olson, I just would like to remind the body, when a member has the floor, to please not talk, and especially in a loud enough voice that is distracting to that other member. That debate was getting a little bit hairy. I didn't swing the gavel because multiple people were doing it, but just going forward, let's keep our debate respectful, and when other people have the floor, to please refrain from speaking. Senator Olson, to you.
Mr. President, could I do a re-referral?
I don't have
I forget when
one.
the best time to do that is.
Do we have the report yet? Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. What's your re-referral?
Okay, I'd like to re-refer House Bill 133, Sanctuary Cities, Counties, and State Prohibition, to Committee Number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, if absent objection.
Absent objection, so ordered.
Okay, I got one more. I'd like to re-refer House Bill 147, Prohibition of Institutional Discrimination, to Committee Number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources. Absent objection.
Absent objection, House Bill 147 is re-referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. And Committee, and Chairman, there are some committees that are getting pretty light, and if you have a heavy workload yet and you want to get rid of some bills, speak with those chairmen. I think agriculture is light, I think travel is a little light. Anybody else that may be a little light on and has some bandwidth for you, get with those chairmen. We'll do some more re-referrals to make sure we can get some of these bills heard. So, thank you. All right, signing in of rolled acts. House Enrolled Act number 24.
House Enrolled Act number 24, being original House Bill 172, repeal gun-free zones and preemption amendments, an act relating to concealed weapons.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 24, being original House Bill 172. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 25.
House Enrolled Act number 25, being original House Bill 264, Central Bank Digital Currencies Prohibitions, an act relating to administration of the government.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 25, being original House Bill 264. I have so signed. All right. Madam Majority Floor Leader, we are at that order of business, consideration of bills on general file.
Mr. President, I move that we stand recessed until 2 p.m.
All right, that too. That works. Motion is to stand at recess till 2 p.m. Any announcements? Any announcements? Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Committee Number 1 Judiciary will meet at noon in W002 to consider 2 House bills, House Bill 273, Wyoming Pregnancy Centers Autonomy and Rights, and House Bill 324, State Elected Officials, Employees at Will and Regulations.
Thank you. Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee Number 5, Senate Ag, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, will meet tomorrow morning, February 25th, 8 a.m., Capitol Extension Room 6, and online to discuss the following three bills. House Bill 63 engrossed, Working Animal Protections Act. House Bill 90 engrossed, Anthrax Outbreak Protocol. And House Bill 224 engrossed, Prohibiting Foreign Adversary Property Ownership. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 3, Revenue, will meet at noon today in room 6 to discuss House Bill 282 engrossed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Travel, Recreation, and Wildlife Cultural Resources Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. To consider the following bills. We'll be down in W4, the Wind River Room. House Bill 299 engrossed, Online Sports Wagering Amendments. House Bill 307 engrossed, Poll Watchers Polling Station Observation. And House Bill 280, Sex Offender Registration. Tomorrow morning at 8.
Thank you. Senator Anderson.
Mr. President, your favorite committee, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, will meet today upon noon recess at whatever time you can get down there in Capitol Extension Room W4. We'll hear two bills, House Bill 180 or House Bill 81 engrossed, regulatory reduction, mortgage loan licensing. That's continued from the previous day, and House Bill 160, voter identification revisions. And I have a concurrence. Could I announce that also?
Joint Conference Committee? Yes.
Mr. President, concurrence on House Bill 28 will meet today at 5:30 p.m. in 113, and that is Cooper, Kolb, and Anderson will meet with Tarver, Banks, and Wiley, and we will bring them home on the shield.
All right. Thank you, Senator Anderson. Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, Social Services, meet today at 12:15 noon recess in W110 to hear three bills: House Bill 164, medical prescriptions off-label purposes; House Bill 135, autologous or direct blood donations; and House Bill 96, prohibiting mass vaccine and testing discrimination. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 meetings to announce.
Okay.
So tomorrow morning, Tuesday, February 25th, there will be 2 concurrence meetings, conference committee meetings.
Joint Conference Committee meetings?
Joint Conference Committee meetings.
Okay.
So the first one will be at 8 a.m. It is going to be on Senate File 33 engrossed. That's the non-citizen driver's license and ID card revisions. That will be in room W110 in this building. And then at 8:15, following that, there'll be another conference committee, joint conference committee, Senate File 32, unpaved roads, speed limits amendments. So we'll take care of those in W10 downstairs. Then my third announcement would be for a transportation committee meeting. So your committee number 8 will meet in the Capitol Extension Room W2 at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning to consider House Bill 246 engrossed, Wyoming Wednesday.
Thank you. Further announcements, Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Appropriations will be meeting tomorrow upon noon recess in room 113. We'll be dealing with 4 bills. House Bill 270, Permanent Mineral Trust Fund Special Spending Policy. House Bill 271, Common School Account Spending Policy Amount. House Bill 293, Repealing the School Foundation Program Reserve Account. And House Bill 294, Federal Mineral Royalties Distribution Amendments.
Thank you. All right, you've all heard the Majority Floor Leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. Senate will stand recessed until 2 p.m.